Good evening, everyone. Oh, I better take the banner down, hadn't I? I forgot to do that. There we go. Oh, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the J Free 906 podcast. We got Mike, Owen, and Shannon here to talk about Skinwalker Ranch once again. Hope everyone's doing well. How you guys doing?
Doing well.
Doing well. How are you doing, Jeff?
Fantastic. Yeah, we was just got back. When I was out over the weekend, went to Gettysburg. That was really cool. I mean, it was really neat to go around and check out all the battlefields and the monuments and understand that whole 3 days of hell out there that they had on that particular battle. But I did, for those of you who are interested in the paranormal a little bit, did have we did a little. John Edwards and I did a little paranormal investigation there, and then I carried it on with some other folks on Sunday evening, and got some interesting pictures and a really cool experience to talk about. But that's on another channel. That's beyond our world, and so we'll get that all together. I still have a lot of reviewing to do of video and pictures and all that stuff. So, but yeah, we're here to talk about Skinwalker Ranch tonight, and I wanted to just say too. If you if you like the content of our show, give us a thumbs up tonight. I mean, how could you not like the content tonight with Mike, Owen, and Shannon here? I mean, come on. I mean, they make this channel what it is, just show what it is. So give us a thumbs up if you like it. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and click on that notification bell if you would. It really helps us out a lot. And then way you're notified whenever we have new content coming out. So I really appreciate everybody showing up here tonight. I also wanted to mention Jim Kilgard. If you notice right at the end of that little video that I play at the beginning, that was music that was written and produced by Jim. I'd love to play the whole thing, but unfortunately, I try to keep that thing down to a minute.
You start to jam to it and you cut it off.
I know, it really
That's
starts.
right.
And that's where it really gets going too. It really starts. The electric guitar starts jamming in there.
Nice.
And then it's like, it's out and done. But
Poor Jim.
anyway, he did a fantastic job on that, and we really appreciate that a lot. Christina's down working the chat. Thank you, Christina. I appreciate it. So she's going to do her best to keep me in line tonight. So I tell you, the first episode of the Skinwalker Ranch, episode number 1 that was out last week, was awesome. I mean, they came right out of the gate with some fantastic new experiments. And here we got episode number 2, and again, a really interesting experiment that they were taking place. I can only imagine what we got. 15 episodes. Is that what we're getting this season? Do you know?
It was
That
16 or 15?
16.
I think it's
I
16.
think we're getting
Is
16.
it 16 this season? All right. Yeah. If anybody knows for
so.
sure, yeah, let us know in the chat. But I figured it was going to be. I think we had 14 last year. I think it was. Now we 15 or 16. But man, I tell you what, if they're all like this,
These
Carolyn,
are
thank you so much.
jam packed. These episodes are like packed to the brim with stuff.
I know. It's hard sometimes, to try to keep up with it all, but there is, we're going to do our very best, I tell you, because interesting experiments that these guys do. And I wanted to say too, real quick, is that I think I mentioned it last week, but we have been talking with Eric Bard. He's going to come on the podcast. We didn't want to have him come on a review show because I want to center this on Eric. And what we're going to talk to him about. So, in our Facebook group page, The Curse of Oak Island and Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, if you happen to be a member of that, we put up a post. Linda put up a post that says, hey, we're going to have him on. We don't have the date yet. It's going to be soon, next couple of weeks. But we're asking if you have any questions and try to make them. Shannon brought up an excellent point earlier. Try to make it a question that he hasn't already answered in some form or another.
That's right. I think he would love it if we could come up with some questions he's never been asked before. And we have so many there's so many insiders and people that watch your show. I bet we can do that. That would be the best. If we could come up with
He always has such an incredible way of explaining things so that everybody can understand it. I don't know how he does that.
Yeah,
it's
especially
remarkable.
Complex topics.
For sure, he's like a natural born teacher, is what it feels like.
Yes, absolutely.
That's why I call him
It's
Professor
amazing.
Bard so often,
It's a good
yes,
answer.
and stuff, yeah, because he really is, and he breaks it down. I love one of the things he does, and if you're gonna ask a question, be prepared to follow it up because I know I've asked him some questions before during chats or when he was in Discord and stuff like that, and he would say, "Well, tell me, your reasoning for asking that question." He wants you to kinda get into it rather than just ask the question. He wants you to kind of let him know what your thinking was that led you to ask that question. And that's what I really like about it, and he'll challenge you on it, so um, and just be prepared for that because I think, and that's the professor in him. He wants to analyze why you're asking that question, then he can put it all together for you in a nice, easy way. So looking forward to that. As soon as we know, we'll make an announcement on it. I'll probably do a little short, a little video or something, throw it out on YouTube just to let you know when we will have him on. It'll be soon. We'll get him going pretty quickly.
Um,
Mhm, go ahead.
Michelle just posted that it's going to have 16 regular well, there you go. 16 regular episodes plus 30-minute extra episodes that will have more interviews and experiment explanations.
Yeah,
So
thank you. Yeah,
it
and I
seems like
saw.
they did a lot this last season.
Yeah. I think they're doing 2 30-minute episodes are coming up, Beyond the Gates. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Beyond the Gates. I think 2 of them are coming up next week, I believe on the 7th of May. I think there's 2 of them coming up, that he's going to, there's one, The Fugal Factor, I think is one of them, and then Travis has one, and I've forgotten the name of that one. The Fugal Factor, and then there's another May 7th. Okay, yeah. So yeah, that's gonna be a lot of fun. So we'll be talking about those too. Somehow we'll fit it in. We'll get him in there. Yeah, Maddie Blake is supposed to Maddie Blake from Cook Island. He's gonna be hosting one of them. So that's kind of cool.
That's
So yeah,
crazy.
a lot of show on the 7th, right? And don't forget next week, Skinwalker Ranch podcast we're doing here moves to Wednesday night. So don't forget that Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m. with Shannon and Mike. So we'll be shifting that over. Oh, Brandon's on tonight. Oh, okay, cool. Is that on the insiders thing? Cindy? I don't know if that was going to be on there or not. Extras are for the end of May.
I feel like I should know this. It's on the insiders thing.
Yeah, being an
Oh
insider
gosh.
is so awesome. It really truly is. I really enjoy that.
Let me
So,
see.
all right. So episode number 2. Holy cow. Holy cow. Yeah. So
Literally and figuratively.
yeah, and this was the cow that really, we talked about it a little bit last week. I think they were having some lidar anomaly or wasn't showing up on okay, thank you, Cindy. Appreciate that. Wasn't showing up on dinner.
I should have known that, Cindy. So just kidding.
So,
Minding my
and, I,
duties.
and I'm going to jump around. I'm going to go through Ben Woodruff, the biologist from the Hutchins Museum Institute. And we're going to talk about him a little bit first because then we can jump into the experiment that they had. But this was really, I mean, I'm not a biologist, and I have a little bit of, I really have to listen when they're talking about, especially these when they get met with Candace and Thomas and Eric, and they went over and they looked at these, and I'm not going to leave it on this picture too long, but these dead birds. Um, and he came over and he did a little initial examination of those dead birds, and I don't understand. I mean, I know that when an animal dies, especially out on a ranch or in the wild, it gets consumed by other animals. It gets consumed by maggots. Things like that happen really quickly and break it down very fast. And yet, that didn't happen here on Skinwalker Ranch. And we've heard about that a little bit before with a cow that died once before. And it really took a long time for it to no, none of the animals would eat it. Remember that?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what their finding is if they find something because watching the live feed from the Insider program, we see all kinds of animals, and there's lots of scavengers that would go around and they would be helping clean up dead
Mhm,
animals like that.
mhm.
And uh, for those to be sitting around for a couple of weeks, there's no way.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like Jim said, the decomposition process seemed to be slowed down, and then that immediately makes me think about the missing time,
Mm,
right? Like, of course, I mean, how would you ever know if those things are related? But it's an when you start to like brainstorm what could possibly be causing something to slow down decomposition in a place that even just a fraction of a second is missing
yep.
periodically, that all adds up and you just have to wonder about it. I'd like to know, like, did I don't remember them saying exactly where they were found. Did did Candace
Birds?
mention
No, I
that?
don't. No,
I don't
I
think
don't
so.
believe she did. No. Or
Hmm,
what the cause. Well, they probably wouldn't know what the cause of death was, but no, they did. I don't
okay.
think they mentioned where the birds were actually found.
I
Uh,
think that would be interesting to find
yeah,
out where they
yeah.
were on the ranch.
Okay, okay. Cindy's wrong. Wrong date. Sorry about
Oh,
that.
thank goodness, Cindy. That's all right. We have something to look forward to, but thank goodness I wasn't completely out of the loop.
Okay. Good deal. All right. Um, let's see. A sparrowhawk is known to bite the skull off birds and eat the brain, but that does not explain the delay in decomposition. Yeah, skyhawk. I have
Yeah.
talked about that. So
Yep.
yeah, and that was one of the interesting things is that the one bird had the brain was gone. Um, and that made me think of the movie Brain Eaters from years. Anyway, never mind. Um, but scavengers should have eaten the birds by now, and didn't. No maggots, nothing. I mean, really. And it was kind of a little bit gross, but I mean, when he
Yeah.
was holding it,
Mm-mm.
squishing it, he goes, "Oh, it's still
He was
squishy." I'm
squishing
like,
it. He was squishing it. Ah,
I mean, yeah, okay. For those of us who have hunted, well, we won't go into all that.
at least nothing squeezed out of it.
Yeah,
That would have been so
Yeah.
much more
I
Oh
know that would
boy.
have been gross. They cut that real quick. Some
gross.
black ooze comes out of it or something. Oh yeah,
Ah,
okay.
oh my god.
So,
Okay.
but again, yeah, we go back to that whole thing, like that, like I mentioned, that cow that died and it didn't get eaten by anything. Nothing would touch it. I thought that was just crazy. Uh, why on this ranch is something things like that happen? Does that happen anywhere else in the Uinta Basin? I mean, I don't know, but eh, that's
There's
just
no shortage of insects on the ranch either. I
no,
mean,
Right.
no.
it's
They
just
talk about that.
yeah, it's
We
terrible. So I can't imagine that between the animals that run around there, rodents and scavengers, like I said, and insects, that there's anything left. That's crazy.
I think that it's interesting because I'm not necessarily sure at this point, especially after like seeing now birds that are lacking this standard of decomposition, that it's more interesting as to how they died or the fact that they aren't getting eaten after they died. And that does make me wonder if it has much more to do with the process in which their bodies are being broken down in relationship to the ranch itself being anomalous than the manner of death. Because I think that if it's in the right environment, like if you take something that's already passed away and you put it in an environment that perhaps changes how it's decomposing, then it's not going to give off the same smell or what have you, and perhaps not be appealing to other animals to eat because it's obviously not affecting necessarily the living animals around, but it seems to be pretty consistent that once they're dead, they nothing eats them,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I don't
In
know.
most cases, yeah. That is
Yeah,
very
in
true.
most cases, I suppose not in all cases, which is so strange.
Well, yeah, you see the deer, when they looked at the deer last season, they found the deer out there
Mhm.
by that in the south field, I think it was. And they were consumed. And then we'll get to that also too. I did want to say real quick too. Thank you. I am Joy. Thank you so much. I didn't acknowledge that. It went by too quick, but thank you so much. I really do appreciate your helping to support the show. So thank you. But they do next in this, and he said he took the birds with him. And he was going back to the lab and he's going to examine them. So, like Mike was saying, hopefully we'll get to find out some more analysis on those birds once that's completed. I hope they don't skip that part. So often on some of these shows, not so much Skinwalker Ranch, but some of these shows when they take and oh, we'll have to check that out, and then we never hear about it ever again, and that's always a sad thing because this is one of those cases where I really I hope they do. Fill us in on that some more later on. Um, so next they jump in the truck and they head over to where the cow died, which is over by this tree right here in the background. They head over there and they find the bones. Now, this is one of those times where the animal did get consumed by the predators and stuff around. Um, and
But
so
by
obviously,
what type of predator based on that tooth mark?
yes, exactly. So that, yeah, it really. Oh, one last thing on the birds too. He talked about the keel bone.
Mhm.
The keel bone still intact on both birds, and it should have been the first thing to decompose. So there you go. Okay. Just I saw that note that I meant to mention. But this cow, and did they say was it like 10 months ago that it died when the film when it was filmed? I think it was several months.
Yeah, it'd
It was
been quite a while.
October. He said this one it had died.
Yeah. So yeah, pretty interesting that they came across this, or Thomas found it out there dead. Um, and they never had an opportunity to find out what the cause of death was, but he did show pictures of how it went down, right? It went down
Mhm.
just like, front legs down, boom, boom. And it was, I mean, that quick. When they did the examination, when he was doing the examination, I found this to be, this is one of those things you never think about, but the contents of the stomach, um, all the grass that has been consumed in a big, you know, clump like this, and how he talked about how if something had dragged it, or it either dragged the internal organs away from the body, or or vice versa, it was dragged, being pulled away. Um, but I never thought about that. The contents of the stomach. And there it is. Um, but they also talked about, something, obviously everything did chew on this thing, and something bit into this rib bone and a tooth went all the way through it. He said he had never seen anything like that. I don't know. What do you and again, I'm not a biologist, so I don't know anything about that kind of stuff, but I mean, it would have to be a very large animal with a very strong jaw and teeth to be able to do that. I would think that's what they were alluding to, right? I mean, what do you guys think of that? I mean,
I'm I mean, in this picture specifically, I'm more impressed by the fact that the tooth mark is so clean. Like, I would think if something were to grab into it, it would be like, if it were able to puncture it, I would imagine it would also be able to, maybe because it's right at the edge of the rib, that it would also be able to tear it. So
mhm.
I think it's interesting that it's just the one tooth mark all the way through. I don't know enough about any of this stuff, though, to have any type of educated uh
Yeah, I don't either.
yes, like, I could never look at that and even be able to tell you if someone didn't say it to me that that was a difficult bite,
Yeah.
especially
Coyote
by
said,
wit
go ahead.
how easily he pulled it off the body. I
Yeah,
was actually it seemed to me that, like, oh, maybe it's kind of brittle, but I guess not. I don't know.
a big wolf. Some people are jumping in. Coyotes have very strong jaws. They don't they? And wolves and cougars. I would assume that a cougar would, and they're going to have those very sharp teeth, that incisors, I guess they call them. I don't know, but anyway, to be able to make a hole like that, but that's pretty significant. I mean, I don't know. And again, he took the bone. He took a few bones with him to go check them out, and get a little further analysis on them. Um, there he is carrying off a couple of them there. That one that had the hole in it, of course, and that, but. Um, he points out that tooth mark and the size of it. He also points out that the spine and the head are intact. Um, he questions the stomach being in a different location and that there's still wet tissue after 6 months. Um, and again, like I said, I'm not a biologist and I don't understand all that, but at least this one did get consumed. It wasn't left there like the previous cow.
Yeah,
But
and
again, you question the death. Go ahead.
again, we saw on over the winter, we did see on the cameras that there were some local dogs that were chewing on it a little bit here and there. I think even
Was that the
William
same
may
one?
have, yeah, they
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
because it was
I
visible
remember this.
from the cameras by the command center.
Mm.
Mhm.
Even William went and rolled in it at one
Oh,
point, and then came
Mhm.
and sat next to Eric to share
I didn't
the
realize this was the
smells that
same
he
one.
collected off of the dead cow.
Oh,
It was
Eric went
very
on and on
graphic.
about that. Yes. Eric
And
was
then it was
very
a whole day of
descriptive.
cow jokes.
Yes,
I
yes,
think I
yes,
never
yes.
ever heard about that now. Yeah.
One of the many benefits of being an
Oh,
insider, I guess.
Hmm.
I did not realize. Now, I have a question just because they've had heavy snows that started pretty early on. Is it not possible that the contents could have stayed wet if they were preserved through the ice and snow? Because didn't, I
Frozen.
mean, it was it was there over winter, obviously,
Mhm.
under all that snow. Um,
I
I
would
don't
think
know.
Yeah.
so.
I don't know enough
I,
about this stuff.
yeah, it's hard to say with how fast stuff decomposes. And I
Mhm.
mean that there's a lot of mass. I mean that was a large cow. That was a full grown cow.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So freezing, thawing over time. There's a lot to get all the way down through all of that. The soft tissue, and we know that this one did get fed off of. So um, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if he only took those bones. I don't know that he took any soft tissue samples of that stuff that he
I
said
don't know.
was still there that he
Mhm.
thought was odd.
Yeah. Yeah, Tom, thank you, Tom. Tom brings up a good point that Wolf, he obviously looked this up. A wolf has a 1,500 psi jaw pressure, and a cougar is 1,000. So 1,500, and that was a good sized tooth. So I could see definitely a wolf having being able to do that for sure. So um, it was in the middle of June when the cow
Mhm.
was examined, though. Okay, yeah, from
Mm.
October to June.
Yeah.
Wow,
Wow.
Yep.
yeah, several
Yeah.
months. So, yeah, interesting though. So hopefully we'll find out some more about that as well. It would have been interesting to find out if they could, it would have been able to get the cause of death. Um,
Yeah.
like the last one, stress-induced pneumonia. Um, I think that was from the first one that died, and that just right, very close to where that one did.
Right. And
So,
Thomas did say, I know a lot of folks were asking why didn't they just get it examined? Thomas did say that they tried,
mm,
but I think people don't realize just how remote the ranch is, and there's not that many large animal vets in the area. He called a number of different vets and even offered. I think Brandon even told him it was okay to offer a bonus to try and get somebody to come out and do an examination and figure out what happened to it.
mhm.
And they ghosted him. They're too
Wow.
busy with their regular customers. I mean, I get it. I know some vets, and you got to make your choices.
Mhm.
It's just too remote and too long to get there, um, and just wasn't worth it. And so it's nice that they have someone that they could bring out like that,
Mhm.
um, to take a look at this, even if it's late in this case.
And I'm not sure how many people know, but the Hutchings Museum actually has a whole part of their website that's dedicated to the ranch, and there
Really, I
are
did not know.
beautiful images of it and the wildlife that's there. They've done some, I don't know if surveying is the right word for it, but they've gone and they've studied kind of the animals and the agriculture, like the plant life and all of that stuff. So I strongly recommend anybody who's interested going to the Hutchings Museum's website, and you should be able to find the uh, the section that's on the ranch specifically.
Wow.
It's really really awesome stuff.
I'm
We
gonna
have
have
it listed
to,
with we have it listed within the insiders group, but for anybody that's not, it's very very cool. Because I
yeah,
know
I'm
I think that's the same gentleman that's been out there a few times. Um, right, Mike? Do you remember? I think
I
it's the
don't.
same guy. I want
I
to say his name is Ben. I think that was who it
Yeah.
was.
I don't. I don't remember. He may have been one other time that he was out there, but I know the Hutchings Museum. What you're talking about, because they did some 3D scans, and
Yeah.
uh, you can go and take a look at inside of the
yeah,
homesteads.
that's kind of what I was gonna say there. I saw that um somebody Pete brought up something that could have done it.
Who
Bigfoot.
is that? When are you going to teach me about that guy?
Oh, we will, because we got Jeff Meldrum coming on the show. Jeff
right,
Meldrum
Mike.
is going to be on the show on the
Doctor. That's Dr. Jeff Meldrum
I'm
to you.
sorry. Thank you. Yes, Dr.
Mike
Jeff Meldrum on the
started to
6th
teach
of
me.
June.
Yeah. Yep.
Mike
So,
started to teach me some stuff, and I think I quickly annoyed him by sending him
Oh, no.
videos of dancing Bigfoot back to
Oh, no.
You need a bonus episode where you guys have me just
mhm.
asking dumb questions.
No, they're not dumb questions. They'd be very, yeah. It's
So
getting very squatchy in here.
that's how the journey down the rabbit hole starts.
Mhm.
Perfect.
Yes,
Question.
exactly. That's how it begins. The next thing you know, you're out looking for the dude. So yeah, and by him, dude, I mean Bigfoot.
I mean, I'm right next to the Appalachian Mountains. Aren't
there
they
you
known to
go.
me
See,
for
I
there?
mean, you're
Yeah.
right there.
I need
How easy?
a weekend hike.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I come out of the woods and I'm just like, I know all about him now.
Just
was
don't. You can actually just go out and just sit in the woods. Go out there at night by yourself. Walk away from the
I'm
vehicle a little ways and just go
pretty
sit
sure
out
I
in the
can't
woods.
do that.
Take a
Mm-mm.
flashlight, and that's it. Flashlight. That's all you get, and a
You
stick.
would literally never see me again, Jeff. And everyone would know it would be because you told me to go sit out in the woods alone with nothing but a flashlight.
That's what I would do. I just
Shannon's
go sit with
gone.
it and you sit in the woods. Yeah. So yeah, Dr. Mel. Yeah, we met him at Phenomicon last year. I got a chance to talk to him, and really cool. And I know he doesn't remember me, but I talked to him then, and I asked him about coming on a podcast someday, and finally we worked it out. So there we go. So the 6th of June, Dr. Jeff Meldrum will be on the
Very cool.
show. So yeah, interesting stuff. I don't know if there's going to be an Expedition Bigfoot this year. They haven't really said anything. I haven't heard a word
Heard.
on it. So
Nope.
yeah,
Haven't
don't know.
heard.
Haven't heard. All right, getting back to Skinwalker Ranch. Now, next we're going to jump into at the very beginning of the show. They were in the command center, and the team reviews a couple of videos from last week of the orb entering and exiting the Mesa. It's and again, Mike and I talked about this a little bit tonight. And you hear them say that it's assumed, right? That's what happened.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I think I've been talking to some folks that watch the show, and they were asking some questions, and I think even on the website some comments about this. From the end of last season, the UAP that flew into the Mesa and flew out of the Mesa, stating it that way seems to bother some folks because it's and Eric's always big on correlation is not causation. So it's kind of one of those cases where you see something fly towards the Mesa and disappear, and then you see something fly from the Mesa, but we can't see inside the Mesa. So technically speaking, we don't know that it went into the Mesa. But they keep saying
Right.
it flew into the Mesa or flew out of the Mesa. I know it sounds like splitting hairs, but from a scientific standpoint, speaking specifically about what you know and don't know is important. Now,
I
obviously,
agree.
Dr. Taylor has a lot more experience in this stuff than all of us.
Mhm.
So maybe he's leveraging some experience that he has that we don't know about, and is a little more open to the transmedium type thing. And there's reasoning behind it. I don't know, but like I said, I just know that the science folks are kind of rolling their eyes a little bit at that because you're jumping to a conclusion
Yep.
without any evidence to back it up. And in the same respect, the folks that watch that video and you can see the trajectory that it's on and the amount of time it's gone kind of ties to about what it would be gone for if it had flown through the Mesa. But we don't really know that. So all we can do is assume that that may have been what it did, and it may have been the same object, or it could have been two totally different objects. As we saw later on in this episode, there's no shortage of objects flying around.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that they watch this, and Eric has watched this over and over and over again. And I was always one of those that were saying maybe it, rather than coming out of the Mesa, it was manifesting or coming out of some sort of portal right there in that spot. When you first see it, that's when it just popped into existence in our reality right there. and then the helicopter was flying past it, and it seemed like it was moving towards the triangle. That's this picture right here where they were highlighting the triangle and the object, the UAP, at the same time, as it looked like it was heading towards a triangle. So um but yes, like Mike said, they have no shortage of these things around, and that's why they had brought this up, and they were talking about this one that was seen on the ground, very low to the ground, moving over there by the bait pen, and it was making, and it was actually moving. If you guys remember, go back a couple of seasons ago to the orb that was outside of. It was Lucy. Remember Lucy outside of Homestead too, and how Lucy was
Mhm.
just kind of floating around there, moving as if it was looking for something, and it even came up by the camera and then kind of moved away and continued to look around. That's what I thought of when I saw this. I didn't mention it last week, but it just seemed like a Lucy type thing that was just floating over the ground, as Dragon had said, like it was floating.
Mhm.
Um, this is also what really intrigues me as well is these um I was going to call them, they're actually pictographs, right? They're not petroglyphs because they're not carved into the stone. I think they are chipped away at the staining, the desert stain on the stone. So I guess it would be somewhat, but they chip away and they create these images. This one here actually is two sides, and this is what they were talking about, some sort of a portal, because you can see the other side of it right here. Two saw,
Mhm.
knives or something, to butchers, knives. But so this is that stone right here in this area that was somebody had done to represent what they thought was a portal of some sort. And yet this is right in the area where all this kind of stuff is happening. Um, the um, so you got these two, and this is why they set it up this way. That one there looked like it was disappearing over in the east field into the mesa. They were saying into the mesa or in that general area. It looked like it was going down and disappeared in that area, and then came out over by the triangle. So um, that's why they did this experiment the way they did. So Travis was talking about the fact that they take this low frequent or very low power signal generator. They decided to do the 1.6 gigahertz, right on the money on there, and send that signal, be on the other side of the rock here and send it, like toward the mesa. It's actually omnidirectional, I think the signal is on this thing. But would it be picked up as it came through, or would it be, over by the triangle where it appeared that the UAP went in and then came out of? Which I thought was really cool experiment to try. Um, so you see the end point and the out point of these two. Now, and something else that we noted, Mike noted, somebody was saying something about it being line of sight. You want to
Mhm.
elaborate on that, or?
Yeah, I saw somebody did a really good job of locating where Travis and Caleb were in that setup in that East Valley, where you see the endpoint. They were kind of off to the right of that a little bit, and then where Eric and the rest of the crew was set up by the triangle. And if you look at it from Google Earth, or Google Earth Pro, it can kind of look like you might be able to see it, but that mapping software doesn't do a very good job of showing the elevation change there of the mesa, the way it goes up. You definitely don't have line of sight
Mhm.
between those 2 points. And so that was kind of the point to the experiment, was being out of line of sight with something, with a transmitter that small and that weak. You
Mhm.
should not get a signal, and that's
Right.
what they were trying to demonstrate, is that there shouldn't be anything
Mhm.
that would transmit that far.
Right. This is the unit they were using. Somebody had asked me in last week's show, one of the comments to the podcast on YouTube asked me about this particular unit. And here they're showing what it is, RF Explorer. So this is the unit they're using. And again, as they mentioned on the show, it is quite low power. So there's no way, and you heard them say this several times, there's no way, even at that distance, even if they had line of sight, I guess there's no way that they should have been able to pick up the signal that far away.
Yeah.
They said that several times.
Yep.
And yet, well, I said before I get to that, here was them setting up over at the triangle. And you remember when and Jim Royson was flying his lidar drone over there as well, and he had it on a pre-programmed flight to go across this path. But remember when Travis first set up and he first turned on everything over there on his end, and he was getting a transmission already on 1.6 gigahertz. Did you hear the sound that it was making? Did you guys catch that? I
Yeah.
was wanted to
Mhm.
record it, but I wasn't able to.
Yep.
But the sound that that thing was making almost sounded like a communication. And then there was this 1.6 gigahertz, and then he saw one just to the left of it, or I guess just a little bit lower, or I guess would that be lower frequency or a little bit higher,
Yeah.
just slightly
Lower.
higher, a little lower
Yep.
frequency, that it was like two things were talking to one another, two somethings are using that signal. Now, yes, that is known that the satellites talk to the ground, military satellites to the ground and back and forth. So there would be that sort of communication, but I think those are pretty aren't those pretty spot on as far as their direction?
Yeah.
It
And the
it's
other
not
thing,
omnidirectional, I don't believe.
yeah, and the other thing too is the signal that he was seeing on screen. If you watch the lower portion of the screen, the analyzer that they were showing, yeah,
Yeah, down here at the bottom.
that's the time uh, display, so it kind of shows the signal over time.
Mhm,
Um, it was pulsing about every second or so, roughly.
mhm,
That's really, really, really slow for a signal. I mean, you know how fast data can be transmitted. We're
uh-huh,
transmitting gigabytes a second, so to be pulsing like that, it was slow. It like you said, it kind of started at a little bit below 1.6, and it
mhm,
kind of started to creep up, and then it would loop back again and kind of start
mhm.
low and go up again. I don't know. It doesn't look like any type of signal that I've ever seen anything like that. So
Yeah, I agree. And I was thinking about this because the you have a carrier wave. The carrier wave, and we used this when I was a radioman in the Navy. You got a carrier wave out there, and then you have an input signal on top of the carrier wave that actually carries the data or the voice or whatever it is. And they were and so I was wondering if they were getting both on here, but it did seem as though there was some kind of a communication going on there between 2 points. And again, we talk about the satellites, and I don't think a satellite is generally a omnidirectional. I think they're more especially the military ones, I would think that they're more, signal, it's not gonna be picked up out in the middle of the desert in Utah, I don't
right.
think, generally. So that, that kind of eliminates that a little bit to that degree. So he was picking this up. And, and that takes me into this whole thing of what if that was something that was either communicating with another something or trying to communicate with them? And I go back to this time and time again, wondering about that. And this is one of the questions that I'm going to ask for Eric, is that have they tried to like download the signal, record it, and then go back and analyze it to see if they can figure out, remember Contact? Remember the
Yeah,
movie
Yeah.
Contact?
Yeah.
Jodie Foster, and they
yeah.
got that
Of
signal
course,
from space?
I think about that movie at least every other day. That
I
and
mean, that's an awesome
Arrival.
movie. That
Those
was
are
an
the two
awesome
movies I constantly think about. It's
yes,
an
but that
amazing
signal was
movie.
carrying the data to how to build the machine,
That's
and
right.
so they were trying to and so I thought, "Man, has anybody tried to break this down and truly tried to analyze it and understand what the signal is or what they're trying to say?" Um, I don't know. Anyway,
I
Yeah,
will
that's
say
I
I
that what Travis has set up, by the way, was one of these
yep,
with that goes to this,
yep.
and it plugs into your computer, and then you run software that is free. So not a terribly sophisticated setup,
Mhm.
but and really he was the guy transmitting, so he didn't even necessarily need to even set that up. But I'm
Right.
sure he was just setting it up to make sure that his little transmitter was transmitting, and he can verify that, and then see what SD receiver. So see what Eric got on the other end.
I like that
I
SMS.
love
Go ahead, please. Sorry.
no, I was just gonna say I love the idea of the Morse code communicating between one another. We've seen things before that with the lights flashing or the camera flashing really rapidly that people have pointed out looks like Morse code, and it definitely makes me want to go back and look at that again because all of this is just it's I don't I feel like Morse code has come up pretty frequently, but I
Mhm.
haven't actually ever heard anybody say that it could be two different things communicating with each other that isn't directly towards the ranch or from the ranch to someone else. So it's this whole thing was mind bending, I would
Mhm.
say.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. FOTW says something about the military uses flying data hub that communicates in line of sight transmission at 1.6. Skinwalker Ranch sits almost directly between those. That I don't know. You may know the information on that that I'm not privy to, but it'd be interesting to find out how that all plays out. But you would now, and again, I go back to all of this. Um, going to Mr. Astrophysicist, Dr. Travis Taylor, and the fact that wasn't this 1.6 gigahertz signal the reason why he went and brought this up and then was brought into the UAP task force? Wasn't that the reason? So he was very concerned about this.
Yeah,
And he,
yeah.
and he brought, yeah, go ahead.
He was he was concerned about the possibility of of someone, some entity of some kind, eavesdropping,
Yep.
and that was related to their voices coming through, being being transmitted. Um, and he was concerned that there may be a third party actor,
Hmm.
uh, could be, foreign country, don't know, but none of that's legal, and the FBI needs to know about it.
Hmm.
And yeah, he went to the Pentagon to get
Yeah,
that info too.
exactly. So I would think that if it was truly, coming from those sources that you're talking about, they would know that already, and
Yeah,
they would not be making such a big deal about it. So I have to interject that because Travis he's a very smart person. So is Eric, and all these guys are. And if they came up with, oh, it's just coming from over there, and we know about that, then they wouldn't be making such a big deal about it on the show. They really wouldn't. It's not. I don't think
Right.
they're. I think they have more integrity than to try to keep playing. Oh, 1.6 is a great deal when it really wasn't. So, I mean, I stick with them on that personally.
sure.
So getting back to this, they had Jim Royston. He got the drone, and the drone was set up and to fly the pattern back and forth across the line that they were working from the east field to the triangle, back and forth across there, um, to watch and see what happens with it, and also to see if they get a result that they actually did get. We'll get to that here in just a moment. And now they're using a high speed camera out there all the time, which I think is awesome. I really think they kind of learned this from last year that they probably needed one of their own. So they got this. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what this is, but what kind of camera this is, but it's pretty interesting. But I'm glad they have one because boy, did it catch some good stuff, did it not?
Yep,
Um,
yep.
and these new four wheelers they got that they're using. Did you notice
Those things
that?
are awesome.
Those
All
are
electric too. Yeah, they're all
yeah.
Mhm.
electric.
Those
That
things
was
are who
that
who
one right there is one heck of a rig.
Yeah, they had 2 of them. There's one in the background back
Yep,
over here too. It's like,
right.
oh my gosh, they got not only they have all kinds of new tech, but they got new vehicles, new toys. Oh my gosh, they're throwing everything at this.
That's
Truly
probably
are.
why they're getting so much done this season already in
There you
in 2
go.
episodes.
Yep, I think
You could
so.
just zip around.
They can just zip around. Yeah. Right off
Just
the
zip
bat, the
around.
drone goes up and it's flying, and they got these holes in the GPS data. And the holes in the GPS data came where? Right where the anomaly is, right where the photogrammetry anomaly was on the ranch. They keep running into this issue. Um, Holes in the GPS data. Boy, haven't we heard that many times.
Yeah.
And they lost communication. He had lost communication with the drone and ended up having to come back, fly back to its point of origin. So many, so many things play into this. Um, the time factor, because we know the GPS works on a time factor, and also the blocking. So if the GPS data works from a satellite, then would the blocking of it come from above? Or would it be something from the ground or in that area or that anomaly itself, the tower anomaly, that is just disrupting it on the ground or in that spot? I mean, what's your thoughts on that? I
Yeah,
don't
that's a good question. I think like we've talked about before, there's a couple of different ways that you could have some disruption of that the GPS signal. Um, I don't know how concerning it would be for on that previous picture where it has the little dots where it's missing a single dot, but that big gap on a drone of that sophistication, that
Mhm.
should not happen. So something is preventing it from getting a signal, and it's not just connecting to you know 4 satellites. It's usually connecting to many
Yeah.
satellites,
Right.
and to lose that signal for all of those, it just that seems very, very unusual.
Mhm.
That's a big gap.
That is a
Yeah.
big
It's
gap.
not
Oh,
a small one.
absolutely. Absolutely it is. And that really, um that's really bothersome. I mean, and you see and we talked about this before, and we're going to see more of it coming down the road with Sky Elements and their drones. Those all work off GPS coordinates, so they know where they are at all points, and they're programmed to fly a certain pattern to make, um, Mario walking across the sky or whatever it is their show is about. And yet, to have those disruptions in the GPS at the ranch, um, it's mind blowing that
The
that would happen there.
the the preview that shows all of the drones falling out of the air is really, like, that's a concerning thing because that's a at base, that's such a safety issue to
Mhm.
have that number of things fall out of the air at people down below,
Yeah, you
that
seen
that's a
Thomas, like
catastrophic failure of equipment
Mm.
that's going to be occurring in
yep,
these coming episodes.
Yep.
I think to a level that we haven't witnessed before
right.
is what it seems like. So,
I agree.
um, I'm
Yeah.
curious where it is that I couldn't tell from the trailer where it is that they were doing that demonstration, and I do wonder how close it is to where we're seeing this gap in the GPS data,
Mhm.
because I
Hopefully, they'll
imagine
tell
that would
us.
affect it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
hopefully
sure.
they'll
I
tell
hope they
us.
do. Yeah, I hope they do. This is a picture of that photogrammetry anomaly and they were calling it Pete Kelsey's anomaly, or his tower anomaly that they
Mhm.
had. Here's a better look at it here. But this
Is
is
that the
where
exact same spot?
that's where they made it
Yeah.
seem. They talked about it being that's where the data
That's
where the
crazy.
GPS was happening. The failure in the GPS was happening at this spot.
Yeah, that's a lot of coincidences because the
Yes.
when Pete was hanging out of the helicopter
Mhm.
with the slam cam,
Yep.
the thing that the lidar picked up was right at the point of that spire.
Mhm.
So
Right up
now
here at
we've
the
got a
top.
third thing that has happened where this GPS and by the way, they're doing a really good job this season, and they've done a little bit of it in past seasons, at least that we see, of repeating things. They repeated that same drone path to
Yes.
see if it did it again, and it did.
Yes.
So they now have repeatability
Yep.
and granted, we only saw it twice. Who knows how many times they actually did it, but even 2 times to lose that many, um, to lose GPS signal that long
Mhm.
on a drone of that sophistication, specifically in the spot where that spire was, is starting
Yeah,
to make that spire seem a bit more interesting to want to know what's going on there.
Yep. Repeatable
I agree.
results. Yep.
I think that's when we're starting to see the stuff in the exact same spot, and while it's being experimented on in different ways is the most interesting thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I'm glad that they're it feels like they're getting more targeted experiments down rather than before it was like a general survey of the area and
Yeah.
like sort of feeling things out. Now that of course, we're in season 5, so after 5 years of they've really got some concentrated areas that they can apply some fascinating experiments to and the technology to do it,
Hmm.
which is
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It is, Kate. It is key. Science is key, and that's what they're throwing at this thing in every which way they can. One of the things too, as we go along with this, but so here's Travis. Finally, the signal that he was getting. Um, I think once they put the drone up, the signal stopped that he was receiving, and then it started flying its pattern, and he picked up the signal again that he was receiving. And then they talked about the breakdown in some of the GPS data points as it was going along, as it was flying. And then they finally got to do the experiment that they came there for, which was for Travis to turn on. And so by the way, when he was receiving that over there on his side in the East Field, Eric was not receiving it on his side over by the triangle. He was not receiving those 1.6 gigahertz signals that were coming from wherever it was they were coming from that
Yep.
Eric or that Travis was getting. Eric was not receiving them. He had nothing. So again, if it would have been a satellite that was spraying that area with signal, why was Eric not getting it? And Eric had better receiver equipment than that little antenna that you just showed us, Mike.
Yeah,
It's
that if you noticed on when they showed Eric's display, it looked a lot more sophisticated than the software that Travis had. That software that they show on the screen, the bottom left screen there, was AARONIA, and if you look that up, those are that's some pretty serious equipment. That's not a little USB plug into your laptop type thing.
yeah, exactly.
Mike, I
This
love
is
that you
very
have props
expensive.
today.
I know, that's great. He always
Mike Mike came with
I try to
props.
have props.
comes
Got to be
prepared with this. That's
prepared. I got to
right.
do my prep work.
I have nothing
Uh,
like that one.
so so that you can look that up. I mean, they have some very expensive equipment. It's uh, so to just balance out, like I said, I don't know that Travis actually really needed anything over there because he was the transmitter. But if you
Right.
wanted to just verify he
Right.
was in fact transmitting,
Mhm.
um, that it's not a bad idea to have it just to check it. And he ended up seeing something anyway.
Yep.
But yeah, Eric not seeing something with his setup, um, that's interesting.
Mhm.
I mean, they were
Yep.
really only about I think 0.7 miles apart from each other,
Mhm.
a little over a kilometer.
Yep.
And the Mesa was in the way, of course. So
Yep. Yeah, and the Mesa was in the way, so that breaks your line of sight. So yeah, and the antenna that I was showing you in the picture here. Wah, wah. I
yeah,
mean, look at the equipment that he's got over there. Yeah, Omnitech. Yeah, thank you for that because yes, Omnitech did bring. They came to play. They came to play with the big toys, which is really really cool. So for
And this
it,
is the second week in a row that we've seen him at the table. Like, I guess
yeah.
they're just on the team now.
Hmm.
So that's very, very cool.
Very cool.
good stuff.
Yep, absolutely good stuff. So they start to do the experiment, and Travis starts to transmit, and there's what they're getting on the other end on Eric's side. Travis is transmitting. We are broadcasting, and there it is. There's the signals coming through. Now there was a few of them coming through, which I was kind of surprised. As soon as you saw these 3 spikes come up, I'm not exactly sure because he was transmitting on 1.6, which was right here in the middle, but
Right.
this one was jumping up there, and well, all 3 of these peaks were coming up. And then they said, "Oh, tell him to turn it off for a second." He turned it off. It died.
Yeah,
Turn it back on. Droop,
the
hop.
looks on that on Eric's face when that popped up, and then he's like, "Have him turn it off." They turn it off, and it goes
I
away.
mean, this look. Sorry, Eric. I had to do it.
He
I'm sorry. I
Such
just had to.
fantastic facial expressions.
Yeah, he's like,
Uh,
what?
ye yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Shared his true feelings on his face there.
Oh my gosh.
It
Yeah.
was
So,
not supposed to happen. That was the
yeah,
last
not
thing he
supposed to
expected to
happen.
see was anything.
Yeah, they were expecting to get nothing yet. Okay, so what does that tell us? You know what? I don't know for sure
Yeah.
what that tells us, but it means that that Travis's little weak signal that he was sending out over in the East Field was making it through to the equipment that Eric had on the other side.
Yeah, I'd like to know how many times they actually did that. On, off, on, off, on, off.
Probably more than once, I
Because
would.
they just showed on and off, and it looked like later he did it a few more times. But did Eric see the same exact thing every single time? Um, so it'd be good to know a little bit more about it. I hope they talk more about that in one of the follow-on
Yeah, I
sessions.
do too. So yeah, it's really interesting that they got all that. And again, oh my gosh, yeah, there's that look. But you know,
I'd also
it
like
go ahead, please.
I always feel like I'm interrupting. I'm sorry. I
No,
was
no,
gonna
no,
say like
please.
last week I would have loved for them to have switched places, like what we had said about the helicopters
Oh,
last
Oh
week.
yeah,
I'd like to see that. I'd like to see if they have something happen, then they switch places so the operator is the only thing that changes, just to cancel that out as a possibility of having any type of impact on the
that's awesome.
experiment. Um,
Yeah.
maybe that's a question we can ask Eric about if they've contemplated
mhm.
doing that, or if he'll just be like, "That's ridiculous." But I
No,
think
I
it
bet
would
it.
be interesting.
Yeah, no,
It
I
would
think
be
it would be
really
very
interesting.
interesting. Yeah. You know, the other thing too, and again, this is that movement of the GPS data. They talked about this as the second time they were putting the drone up, or we assume it was the second time, might have been the fifth
Mhm.
time for all we know. But it was they said that the drone went straight off the ground, straight up in the air, which it's designed to do by being programmed that way. And yet it made this bend to the south on the GPS data and then kind of straightened back out and then went off. They were all a little surprised by that as well. So obviously the GPS data is just getting all screwed up there. I'd be afraid to fly anything out there, to be honest, even the helicopter, with all
Me
this going on.
too.
I mean, if you can't
I'm
trust the
amazed.
data, I mean,
Yeah, especially the drones that are relying specifically on the GPS data to actually do what they're
exactly,
doing.
exactly. So,
Mhm.
and then this one right here, this image right here, when the drone the second time that it went down and flew down to the east field, and then it got confused and it didn't return home like it was supposed to right away, but instead it was going around in like a weird circular pattern trying to figure out what it was doing.
When you just had it up like that though, can you go back to that image? That that looks like the symbol on on the rock.
Mhm.
That butcher's knife
Yeah.
or
Ah,
whatever you called it earlier. It looks very, very similar to that.
it does, doesn't it?
Mhm. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm sure it's completely unrelated, but I just noticed that
Well,
because
I
we
don't
took
know.
time to look at it.
Is the
It's
J for Jay
interesting.
Stratton unrelated? I
Maybe
don't
so.
know.
It's beckoning Jay
Yeah.
Stratton back.
Yeah.
No, but it looks like that little symbol that that you showed. I don't know how
On the
far away
rock.
those images are, but I'd like to see them
All
comparatively
right,
because
hang
it does
on.
look
I'll bring
very,
it back up here. Whoops.
it's
Uh, there you
very
go.
similar.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Do you have it with their outline on it? Sorry, Jeff.
Yeah,
So I
yeah, I
had it.
do.
I'll show it to you.
I do. Hang on. Let me go grab that one. Here it is. I got it. Okay. Right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. That's very
It
Wow.
reminiscent
looked like
of
that.
that little and didn't he say, like,
Wow.
it wasn't supposed it should have been going in a straight line and, like, turned back around, but instead it did that, like, weird thing, is
Wow.
what it was doing, right? It's weird.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have
Hmm.
to now see. Now I'm gonna have to put those two. Yeah, that looks like the Big Dipper. Now I'm gonna have to put those two pictures together into one, side by side, and
Well, you
I'm
know
gonna
what
have.
it also kind of looks like? There's the triangle on
Yep,
and that's the valley on the right, the meat cleaver.
that's right.
Now
Meat cleaver, that's
Weird.
what they're called. Thank you.
the triangle though
The
was
meat cleaver. I don't. What did I call it? A butcher's knife or
I
something?
thought I called it
Meat
earlier, a
cleaver.
butcher's knife.
Okay.
same difference.
Same thing.
The triangle was formed by the back when that road was public. That was
Yes.
originally an open road
Yeah.
before Bigelow said no way and closed it off. And it was just there was a turn there, and you could turn south, and so it just naturally formed that triangle. So that's I wouldn't think the triangle would have been there back in that time frame, but it does seem like an odd coincidence.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
It is. That's and those are and that's why that's why I love having you guys on here because I had not put that together. That's really good. That's great insight. Thinking about that. Man. Yeah. So yes, it's
Before I had the opportunity to come on here, I would just have these thoughts to myself. So,
yeah. I mean,
Now we all get the
or to
benefit of it.
Mike, or to Mike the message.
Mike, look what I saw. Here's what I was thinking. Mike's like,
Mike has gotten plenty of messages from me.
oh, that's hilarious. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm very impressed by that. I had not thought about that. And of course, the GPS, the drone was not. It was supposed to stay at the level it was at and not be dropping down.
Jim
But
did say at one point it was, I think he said it's done calibrating. So,
mhm,
but it wasn't clear if what it was doing there in that little pattern was the calibration process or what. But as soon as you see a drone like that, when you know it's on a pre-programmed route, as soon as you see it make an abrupt movement,
mhm,
that's not okay. That's not normal. Shouldn't do
right,
that. Not
Mm-mm.
on
right,
a pre-programmed route like that. It should be
right,
nice and smooth
exactly.
and just go about its business and come back. But of course,
Yep.
it's Skinwalker Ranch, so it's not.
Time and time again.
Yep.
And that's another one of those things that's very, very repeatable. But here you look at the data again, and right there, and if I'm correct, and I believe this is what they were saying, right here in this area is where the photogrammetry tower is, where this is being disrupted. So all of this different types of data, all pointing to something happening in this spot and also over in the triangle. You can't if it was just one piece of equipment that did it, okay, and none of the other ones did, but when you apply multiple things to this, pieces of scientific equipment, whether it be the drone or whether it be a GPS or whether it be the photogrammetry imagery and all of that stuff, different pieces coming together, all showing you there's something happening right here. Something's happening right here. I mean, that's no two ways about it. What that is yet, obviously, they just don't know. Um, but it's certainly happening. So at the end of all this, and they said the next day. Well, hard to say if that was the next day or not because obviously um, Eric had to have time to see what he saw,
Mhm.
um, which was these images that were captured by the high speed camera. And one thing that Travis made a comment about, and I do have some video I want to show here too, of these UAPs. All I captured pretty much all of the data or all the video on the UAPs that they saw. And I just have a few pictures first, but um, he talked about it 7.5 times. I think he said 7.5 times slower than it was actually moving.
Mhm.
And I go back to that UAP that I had spotted that came across. It was that silver orbish UAP that flew across the screen from the insider program, watching the screens.
Mm-hmm.
And this was back. I think they were actually filmed. They were filming because it was in July. They were actually filming, so we only had one at that time. But I saw that, and it was. I mean, it was so quick when it flew by, and I just saw a blur, just a little glimpse of it. Um, these were probably moving about that same type of speed. Um, I would guess based upon what he was saying there. And then there was this elongated one again that they picked up. They said it looked like it was. It looked like it to me like it was going behind this ridge right here,
Mhm.
which would have been over where the triangle is because it's around that corner where the triangle was. And they talked about that several times in the analysis. And then right there is that rock that the
Yep.
petroglyphs are on right there. So keep it up, Jeff.
I feel
Thanks,
like
Craig. Thank you, Craig.
we've seen a lot. Like when I was watching this episode and they were showing these close-ups of the several um, flying objects that
Hmm.
are currently unidentified. Do you want to call them unidentified flying objects? I feel like we've seen a lot of these on the cameras, like over the past 2 years.
Mhm.
Nothing that I saw on the show wasn't something that we have just heavily analyzed behind the scenes in the Insiders program, from what we've seen on camera. And I think it's really exciting because it feels a little bit validating too that some of these strange things that we've had kind of left open ended, that we've all kind of come together and analyzed and put through filters and slowed down and zoomed in, seeing something very similar on the show. Um, was really, really cool this week, but that was a
Absolutely.
lot all at one time.
It really
I'm not sure
was.
we've ever caught that many. I don't think we've ever
Yeah,
caught
Yeah.
and
that
you know
many
what?
on
It
one
made me
camera at
think
the same
too is
time.
that, here they had that 1.6 before they started. Then Travis was doing the
Mhm.
1.6, albeit on a very low frequency or low power. I'm sorry, low
Power.
power unit. Um, but it was making it through the Mesa or making its way over to Eric. So could it have stimulated anything? So
Yeah.
again, whenever they do that, it seems to kick the hornet's nest and stuff starts happening. Could that have been the result that all these UAP are now out there looking around to see what's going on? You know, who's doing that? Are they trying to
Checking it
communicate
out.
in some way? Yeah, I mean, this one here was really cool because Eric talked about how it was squarish, black top, and white bottom, and it never changed that all the way across. Now, some of the other ones were kind of fading in and out. They were kind of cloudish. If you were looking at it with the regular camera, they looked like they were almost like a little cloud, a dot of cloud. They couldn't see wings and that sort of thing on them, but this one never changed. It stayed white bottom, black top, kind of a boxy, very square image all the way through its trajectory. It stayed the same all the way across, which I found to be very, very interesting. Um,
Mhm.
I've got some video here that I want to show. Um, let's see. Let me grab this here. Um, and this, oh, there we go. All right, let me stop this here. Now I'm going to run through the first ones, and then I'll stop, and then we'll go through each of them in turn. Um, but this is the first one that they had captured, and they're following it going up. And remember, that's at 7 times slower. And you saw how quickly it was moving. And this is where they zoomed in on it. Now, I don't see any wings on there or,
Yeah.
any type of indication that it's a bird or a bug or anything like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Shannon, you talked about that it's funny how quickly, I mean, after looking at I don't know how many of these
Yeah.
things on the live stream, how quickly you recognize that blurry motion out to to the sides that indicates wing
Mhm.
flap. And now I understand why Eric reacted the way he reacts a lot of times when we would ask him questions about, hey, what is this, or what are your thoughts? And you can't say definitively, but when there's blurry stuff off on the sides, it's an indication of wing flap.
yep.
And it's not a bug, because if it was a bug, it would had to have been too close to the camera, and it would have been blurry. You wouldn't have really seen it. It might not have even shown up. So at that distance, it has some size to it, and there didn't really seem to be any wing flap indication of any kind. So what was moving it along?
Exactly. You don't see any kind of a heat signature,
No.
from a jet engine or anything like that. So, yeah, how are these things being propelled through there? And you talk about making it through if that one that got last year from the cameras on the helicopter from Cameron's helicopter did go into the Mesa and come back out of the Mesa. I remember wasn't there a Star Trek episode or something about, I forget what movie this was, but they had to actually enter, they were going to crash into a planet and they had to actually enter warp and went through it because they couldn't, huh? I
Punch
forget what
through it.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they actually they went into warp and went through it with the warp bubble, and it went right straight through the planet rather than crashing into it. And I thought about that, or transmedium, like you were talking about. That's just how could something like that possibly happen to go through solid material? So I don't know. All right, got another one here. This is the one that was the line. Looked like the little line coming out, so it's going to show up in the lower section right over here. And you see him there, yep, going right there. And it looks like it goes around to the other side over by where that's the rock there. And there it goes there. Looked like it was heading over to the triangle area, which is around the corner there.
Mhm.
So that was pretty cool. And again, that one's, and I think I mentioned this last week, talking about, in a paranormal investigation, you get rods, and usually a rod would be a bug flying by. That's not a bug flying by. That's not a bug rod flying by for sure. Oh, was the Stargate SG-1 when they went to hyperdrive through the Earth? Okay, thank you, Scott. I couldn't remember what show that was, but I remember them doing that. They were going to crash, and they just went into hyperdrive, so they went through it. Thought that was kind of neat. So you wonder about that, though. I mean, is that where I thought about a hyper bubble or some kind of a bubble around it, and Travis had mentioned this before too, like it had some sort of a shield or a force shield or some kind of thing that was giving it that hazy look as a bubble around it. He had mentioned that as well, and it's kind of what I think about when I see those hazy looking ones. So, and then the last one, this is the longer one where they had the multiples. So, well, there's a little bit here. They show this one coming across. And again, it looks like a little white dot of a cloud as it's moving across the screen. And here, I think this is the one that was the box. Looked like the box, white bottom, black top. Yeah, it is. And you see something, right off the bat as it's moving across, you see something that kind of seems like it's moving underneath it.
Mhm.
There it goes right there. You can see it moving underneath it. And then all these other ones show up. There's one there, and there's another one way over there on the side.
It's like object for person on the ground.
Yeah. Now he talks about how it went straight down. Now is here, and this is he shows it going around, and then it slows, and then it turns and goes down, and then it kind of circles around a little bit. And Travis said like it's coming in for a landing. Folks, I mean, I'm just capturing these kinds of things just blow me away, because you look at the fact that, what in the world, these are not bugs. If people can sit back and they can say, "Oh, it's a bunch of crap," they're what they're doing out here, it's just for TV. They're just trying to make money or whatever. None of this is true. No, I mean, come on. If you watch this and you see what's happening here, I mean, do you think they're capturing UAPs? Do you guys believe that whole? I do.
Yeah.
I
I mean, I
don't
think
know.
it's just as convincing as anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what they're getting. I mean, to me, it seems like when you think about, to me, when I think about the Tic Tac case, those are bigger objects.
Yes.
And Brandon even said his experience that he had after 6 months of owning the ranch, he saw a
very large.
These all seem small, almost
Yes.
more like, and I hate to use orb because that means a lot of different
Mhm.
things to many different
Yep.
people,
Yeah,
but
it does.
they're very small. And so it's odd that they're seeing a lot more of those types, the small ones, um, than maybe the bigger stuff. I don't know.
Yep.
I I will definitely say that I'm gonna say yes, but with the understanding of it being under the definition of an unidentified
Yes.
anomalous phenomena.
Absolutely.
Like I
Absolutely.
do believe it's anomalous, and I do believe it's a phenomena, and I don't believe we have an explanation for it. What that
Yeah.
means, I have no idea. I can't begin to apply whether or not it's nuts and bolts or if it's
Right.
transmit. Like I have no way of ever coming up with any assessment, at least in the near future, for it. But I do think that we are witnessing something anomalous. Um, I can say that pretty firmly, at least in my opinion.
Yes.
I think I've been given more data and reason to believe that it is than not. And I think for me, that's sort of how I assess things like this. Like I'm pretty in the middle skeptic when I ask questions. I'm an open minded skeptic,
Mhm.
and this moment present, I feel like I've been shown more information leaning towards than not. So
Yep. Yep. Yeah, Jim sums it up right there. Jim Kelgard, UAP doesn't equate to alien or off-world tech. It just means unidentified. And that's
right.
exactly when I
Yeah.
said UAPs, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. They're
I'm not saying
definitely
it's alien.
catching something. We don't know
Yes,
what the conclusion is.
correct.
Hmm.
That's part of the mystery.
Yep. Yeah,
I
Christina did have a good interview. I heard about it. I haven't seen it yet, but I definitely will go watch it. Christina Gomez. So I definitely want to go check that out on her channel. But yeah, so you take all these UAPs that they're picking up, and I say UAP because it's unidentified, but and then this was at the Triangle, and this is where they are still baffled by this entire
yeah.
thing that was picked up by Jim Royson's uh, UAP drone, or not UAP, UAP drone, his lidar drone, and this large circle, the red circle being a perfect circle, and then having that hole in the center of it that was not given a return at all from the lidar. It just absorbed into the ground. The return did not come from that area. Higher returns are the red, right? And lower returns are the blues, I think, or but you see how it went to black in the center, which meant no return in that area, like it sucked it into a black hole or something. Um, and like I said, they're still, you know, um, trying to figure out what this is.
This reminds me of now in the last week, there's been an article, I'm sure several articles that have come out about the blue hole that was discovered under the ocean off the coast of Mexico, I believe. And they're calling it the deep.
Blue.
I just pulled up the article so I could reference it correctly, but the deepest blue hole in the world discovered with hidden caves and tunnels believed to be inside of it. And it's funny because the way that it looks from an aerial is very similar to the obviously it's some water, but it's reminiscent of, and then you start thinking about the fact that it's been long suspected that there are tunnels and caves sort of underneath this area.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
it's interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, Christina put that up here. They should redo that and see if it comes up again. Yeah, I would think they need to. But I think that this is one of the things that happens with the ranch is that um, while these things happen often, I don't think they're always on, if that's the right way to say
Right.
that.
That's the worst
Um,
part. It's transient.
yeah,
It's not always
transient.
there. That makes it
Exactly.
really, really, really hard. And
Yeah.
anybody that's done any kind of troubleshooting. I mean, if you ever had something wrong with your car, you take it to the mechanic and they said can't reproduce the condition. Sorry, and they give it back to you the same
Yeah.
way that it was. When
Yeah.
stuff's
Got one.
intermittent, that's the worst kind of thing to try and diagnose. And
Yep.
it's
So, do you think that that is because it is being turned on and off by some non-human intelligence, or do you think that it is dependent on environmental factors or what the team is doing at the time? and it's naturally occurring, but it's just being affected by different things, and therefore it appears. You guys have
I'm gonna
opinions on
go
that?
ahead, Mike. I'll let you
I
take a stab at
I
that
don't.
first.
I mean, I think it depends on what it is. The GPS thing is to me the most interesting because that's something where you could. I understand Eric has talked about this in the past. I understand what he's after when he says he'd like to have like an array of
Mhm.
GPS receivers all throughout the ranch
Right.
Mhm.
because you can take a look at that if you're collecting data from all of those many different points across the ranch,
Mhm.
you can look at multiple things. You can take a look at, are their positions staying stationary like they should, but it's Skinwalker Ranch, so we know that sometimes they'll show up below ground. You can start to get a pattern because is it all locations on the ranch? Then you need to have GPS further out than just the ranch. We know the Uinta Basin has a lot of this stuff going on. It's
Absolutely.
not just doesn't the high strangeness doesn't stop at the fence line.
Correct.
Um,
Right.
so or is it only a cluster that have some uh, wrong locations on them? And where's that cluster? What is the shape of the cluster? Or you can look at it from the standpoint of how many satellites does each receiver currently see in the sky?
Mhm.
And if a certain grouping of them only see satellites on the horizon, you've got a pretty good indication there's something above it. So you can learn a lot of stuff from the GPS receivers, and if you had kind of an array, again, it'd be, I'm sure, again, more terabytes worth of data to wade through, but
Right.
it would give
Exactly.
you some indication of what's going on. I still feel like though, in general, just like that first uh, signal that Travis got, it's anytime they go to do something,
Mhm.
it's oh wait, go look over here. No,
Yeah.
don't worry about your experiment. Hey, come look at this.
Yeah.
It's distracting.
Mhm.
There's something
Yeah.
that it's like there's some kind of an intent to prevent you from doing whatever it is you want to do
Right.
just for the sake of preventing you from doing it.
Yep.
Do you think then there should be several simultaneous experiments happening at once, all with different intents because of
That
that?
that'd be another way to do it. One
Absolutely.
thing that I know we've talked about in the past was to set up multiple experiments that trigger randomly
I think
so
that would
that
be a great
even
idea.
Ah.
even they don't know when the experiment's going to initiate.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
if they, because consciousness, they're thinking about the experiment, if there's something they're picking up on that, so make it completely truly random. So even they don't know when an experiment is going to kick off and see what happens.
I
Can it
mean,
anticipate that too? I don't know.
the
Yeah.
best experiments, especially having to do with anything with consciousness related things, is double blind. Like
Yes.
everybody has no clue what's going on until afterwards when you're reading data, and even then, like it. I think that would be a really interesting and worthwhile experiment to do, with the sole purpose of not having necessarily some concrete idea as to what you want your data set to look like. And that in and of itself, the intent would be wildly open, even, right? Because your intention is not some concrete, like, are we going to get this signal through the Mesa? Or
Right.
is it going to be able to go back and forth? I would love to see that. I would love to see them have a whole bunch of different things happening at one time and nobody really knows exactly what they're doing. I don't know it would take a lot of planning to do something like that, though, and you'd have to have people that are unaffiliated with the ranch in part to do it as well if you wanted it to be truly
I'll go
double
help.
blind. You're you're excluded. We're all anybody who's here right now is excluded from it
I know.
because
Dang it.
we're too invested. We would
Yeah, we
need
are.
people that are not that have like nothing. They have no knowledge about it. Like it would have to be so far removed for it to be truly double blind. So that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So if it is a consciousness issue, then that experiment is a good idea. Randomly generated. That was Cindy said that. So yeah.
Hmm.
Um, Yeah.
That's what we need.
Yeah, truly. And I think that's a great idea. I really do. I think that that's something that, and maybe they will. Maybe this season will prove that they have done something like that. We've seen where they've done different experiments at the same time, but like Mike said, having them randomly set up to go off at different times
Hmm.
where they maybe, because people have talked about this being a consciousness thing at the Mesa or at the ranch there that knows what's going on. You heard about the general calling it a it. It knows what you're
Right.
doing. It's going to prevent you from whatever. So I don't know. Is that true or not? Who has any
And
idea?
I feel like that would even work with the idea that some people think that it could be some sort of advanced AI. Like if
Yeah,
you
yeah. Somebody
at
mentioned that
least
in
an
chat.
AI that we have now, you can still confuse it
Mhm.
at this point. But if it's advanced, I mean, if you overload it with too much stuff,
Yep,
as far as we know, it could be so advanced, I suppose, that it would supersede those
yep,
expectations. But
yep.
I don't know.
Yeah, I see these
Short
little
circuit.
things, these little UAPs, if they are truly, I think there's some sort of a mechanical thing that are flying around, and but what they are, we just simply don't know. But I think they might be. They're so small, as we were kind of talking about. I think they might be a drone. I think a couple of people mentioned that in the chat also that they thought about them being as some sort of a drone. And you talk about that one that was moving across that Eric was looking at the box one. That the other ones that one was in control, and then the other ones were flying around doing what they needed to do, and they captured them all in that same shot. But you think about those things are so small and they move so fast that I think that they're 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 happening in different parts of the country where we don't even notice it because it goes by so quickly. I've mentioned that
Hmm.
before, that one that I saw, and I have seen similar while driving down the road on a sunny day and saw that quick little. Now I kind of look for it now. And now that I saw that one, I kind of look for it. And I have seen it before. Or just randomly driving down the highway and see something so small fly
Yeah.
by real quick, a little shiny something or other. So I think it's possible that they're happening frequently and they're flying all over the place. Um, but now they've got some sort of technology where they can actually catch it there on at the ranch with the technology they have. So interesting. Final thoughts on this episode? What do you think? Another good one. I was
The good one.
impressed.
Yeah.
I
Uh,
mean, episode 2, I'm ready. This has been, come on. We're in for it this season.
I
I
think
feel
so.
like the first 2 episodes have been really, really great as far as, like, I know a lot of people love the rockets and the drum circles, and I love all of
Oh
that
yeah.
stuff too. I think that stuff's probably my favorite. But as far as like rich in science and data collection, these 2 episodes have been fantastic.
Yep.
It's
Yeah, I
exciting.
agree. And I want to say out there too, folks, that if you are interested in posing a question to Eric, try to make it something he hasn't already talked about. If you're an insider, but and you've been some of the Q and A's and whatnot, but you can send it to me. My email link is down in the description below. You can send a question to me if you're not part of our Facebook group. If you are part of our Facebook group, put it on the post there that Linda had put up. Put your question there for Eric Bard, so we want to really really task him and let him explain some stuff. I'm all about the tech. I'm really interested in the sound that's working and stuff like that. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with him. I've got some questions already lined up, but throw them out there to an email to me if you are not part of our Facebook group, because I'd like to hear what you have to. I'd like to be able to ask. I can't if I get 1,000 questions. Obviously, I can't ask them all, or we can't ask them all. But we will do our best to get them in. I know. Where did the 90 minutes go? Right? I know it goes by so quickly. Um, but yeah, so we're looking forward to next week. And then we also have those 2 30-minute shows. I think those are on the 7th as well. So we're going to be talking about those. We'll probably combine those together in our podcast. But don't forget, we're going to be, it depends on how much data, how much stuff is in them. because we might not be able to get it all in an hour and a half or so. So it just depends. We might have to break it up a little bit. But don't forget, next week we are doing Skinwalker Ranch on Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Then there's a drilling down that we're going to be talking about from Curse of Oak Island. It's going to be on Thursday night, and that'll be our wrap up for that. But we do have guests that are coming on for Oak Island stuff later on, Corey and Mole and all that. We're having him on. So that'll be going, but those will all be on Thursday nights going forward. So next week, Skinwalker Ranch on Wednesday. All right. You guys are going to be able to, Wednesday's good for you both, right? So
Yep.
Yes.
I think you already said it was. All right. So
Yes,
Wednesday
sir.
night for next week. All right. Thank
Okay.
you, folks, for being here with us tonight. We really appreciate it. A lot of good stuff out of the chat, as always. And Mike, Owen, and Shannon, thank you so much. You guys are awesome. You have such great input. Wouldn't know what to do without you on this. So thank you very much. And Christina, thanks
Thank
for
you.
helping out. And Linda, as always. And Jan for doing the synopsis. She did some notes for us on the show. So thank you very much for that, Jan. We'll catch you next time right here on the J Free 906 podcast. Good night, everyone.